the US government treating hacking and cybersecurity with enough respect?
Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no, and it kind of depends on which groups you're talking about. Like the Tailored Access group, those guys are very serious. Those are real actors, and there's a couple other teams that I know inside the Pentagon that are extremely talented and know what they're doing. They're an outlier, though. They're very specialized. They do this thing and they do it very, very, very well. It's kind of like the Navy SEALs for breaking into computers sort of thing, right? They're very heavily trained. They've got the right tooling. They really know what the adversary looks like. They've done their homework. They have billions literally in data sitting in warehouses that they can process. Like they can get into anything they want. Now you extrapolate, you go one level out to, their bosses or their bosses' bosses, or, the staffers who give them the money or tell them what sort of things to go after. The people who are telling them, hey, we want to go tackle this section of some government somewhere in some other country. It's pretty iffy. And unfortunately, those people are the ones who have the purse strings. So they get to decide who gets to do what. They create the policies that we all rely on. So if they don't do their job, it almost doesn't matter how good those Taylor Access guys are. Like the Tau can have all the money in the world, but if they're not allowed to do the thing that they're supposed to do, then they're not very useful, or vice versa. They can be tasked to do the right thing, but don't have the right tooling. And so what are you going to do? They're not going to be very effective.
Well, no, but you're not winning an election saying we're going to enhance cybersecurity. That's not sexy. It doesn't sell. People aren't going to show up at rallies. I think Trump probably did the closest thing by saying, I'm going to build a wall. And you could say it worked out for him or it didn't work out for him, but cybersecurity just strikes me that we're not taking this stuff seriously enough, quite frankly. And all it takes is like one major hack. Look, I'm going to actually segue a little bit to the future of warfare.
Before you jump, and this is related, it depends on if you mean offensive or defensive. So offensive, I think we're doing an okay job, and the teams working on that are quite good. Like really the offensive side, very, very good.
How do you mean?
They know what they're doing. They're very technically capable. They've got the right tooling. Well,
what do you mean by offensive? Like we're hacking into Chinese...
other countries. Yeah, exactly. Or whether or not we are doing it, we have the capability of doing it, which is more important actually. The defensive side, though, one of my very first customers in my previous company was the DoD, and they thought I'd find about 100,000 assets, web-enabled some things, whatever it is, printers or, computers or whatever, on the public internet. On my first try, I found 1.9 million, and now I'm much, much higher than that, in many, many millions of assets. And, these are not things that should be on the internet. These are things that they don't want on the internet, like outdated firewalls that aren't even made anymore, printers, and outdated Minecraft servers sitting on the 10th fleet, and all kinds of crazy that are vulnerable. Like all these things are vulnerable. And so when I talk with those people, they understand the problem space conceptually, but they are wildly underfunded and really do not have enough actual internal expertise to understand how to do this. There's a handful. They're like a very small handful of guys who are good in there, but you need an army, like a literal army, taking down hunting them down, figuring what they are, deciding whether you should have them or not, and turning them off or putting them behind firewalls or protecting them or whatever. That's going to take a literal army, not a figurative one. An actual army of people are going to have to walk around doing this. And the amount of technical debt we've incurred because of this is enormous. And I'm not even talking one level past there, which is the government contractors, or one level past there, which is the government. I'm not talking about the military here, I'm talking about the government.gov. Like those guys, it's almost as bad as you could possibly imagine, because the government is not comprised of like a small tiger team of people who are tasked to do a thing. They're like Joe Bob's nephew who built our dog catching website for us. And, there's like some random traffic system that, lowest bidder in some little companies probably not even around anymore, who just happen to be on the government contractor list. Like, I've met some of these government contractors and I wouldn't use them for anything. Like, literally not anything. They're just not qualified to do this type of work. But they got in there at the right time. They schmoozed the right government employee, and now they're doing that task. Those things are not updated. No one even knows that they exist. It's not like there's an inventory of them anywhere. So when I talked with the head guys over at CISA, I'm like, they're like, if you could wave a wand, what would you do, Robert? Like, we know you know this stuff. Like, what would you do? And I'm like, the very first thing I do is ask them where everything is. Just give me a count, like just a number. Like, how many assets do you Texas have, or you Nebraska, or wherever? Like, how many do you have? What's the number? Which means they would have had to do a count of something. And then next, no accountability there. No gotchas. Just give me a number. The next year, okay, give me a number again. So it should be approximately the same, maybe a little up, maybe a little down, or whatever. And then tell us how you got that number. And then year 3, it's like, okay, well, now I need to know what's running on all those things, since you know that they all exist. And the year after that, it's like, now I need to know why those things have any vulnerabilities on them, and why you haven't fixed them. What is the rationale? You have to come up with a rationale for why you haven't done the work. So now you start getting accountability. But CISA was like, come on, Robert, no one's ever going to agree to a bill like that. And I'm like, well, that's the problem. Like, that is the problem. Like, we do not have a level of accountability in the United States, even though federal funding could be attached to whether people are doing the right thing in cyber or not. They're just not going to do it. There's not the political will.